All right, our next speaker is a nationally recognized executive, keynote speaker, and most importantly, a proud husband and father to 7 children. Ryan is the former managing director for healthcare at Google. He is best known for keeping his integrity through his legal battle and David versus Goliath victory against Google's woke HR culture. Ryan has countless favorite saints like Maximilian Kolbe, JP2, and Mother Teresa. But St. Joseph is his clear number one. Ryan narrowed down his favorite films to Braveheart, The Princess Bride, Rocky, and of course, Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. Ryan, we will not have tater tots for lunch. Some of your tots. All right. Ryan's favorite athlete is also Indiana's current favorite athlete as well. We just heard him, Fernando Mendoza. And Ryan's one thing to remember today is this: it is impossible to lose when you are fully surrendering yourself to God. He'll be speaking on our second pillar, integrity. Give a warm E6 welcome to Mr. Ryan Olohan.
Good morning, everyone. So Napoleon Dynamite, I probably have mixed reviews on that. That's 50-50. My friend here hates it. We have any fans? All right. Look at all the young guys' hands go up. Well done. So it's, true honor to be here today. I know this sounds really weird. I'm here to talk about integrity. I'm going to start off by saying I learned a lot about integrity as a kid. It was actually from my dad whacking me and getting in trouble, and he'd slap me around every once in a while. Anyone else here remember Dad giving him a shot here or there? And I say that, and you're probably thinking, okay, that's a super weird way to start this about your dad giving you a hit every once in a while. But my dad was an awesome man. Like I grew up in a big house, 10 kids, 9 living. Mom and dad were amazing. Good Catholic household, going to mass, praying the rosary. We try to be a family of faith. Actually, we have. All right, there we go. So that's the gang. And by the way, I wanted to zoom in. My mom, who's a saint, literally a saint, was also my hairdresser. Cut all of our kids' hair. And she did everything in life well besides cut hair. So I just want to, although my haircut looks like all these fellas in the front row. So it's all come back in style. But I say that because I actually cannot remember. I grew up outside of Boston, big family, faithful family, taught us hard work. I cannot remember ever my dad actually hitting me. But I do remember very well all the times after I got in trouble. And he would take me aside and he'd give me a big hug. And he'd say, Ryan, listen, my job is to make you a good Catholic man. Good boys become good men. Bad boys become bad men. And I want you to make you a man of integrity. And I remember at the time, I was like a young guy, and he always talked about integrity, man of integrity. I have to be honest, I didn't actually really know what that meant. And, I was a kid, and I knew it meant to be good. And this was before the internet, so I couldn't really go on Google and research it. And so I'm going to do you all a favor here, and I Googled it, and here's the definition. So the integrity, the quality of being consistently honest, moral, and ethical, adhering to a strong set of values, even when it is difficult or no one is watching. And so actually, I was reading that definition. I don't know about you, but I can barely read. And so sometimes I look at a definition, I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, what exactly are you saying here? So I tried to narrow it down even further. And I said, when you think about what is integrity, I said it's doing the right thing even when it's inconvenient or nobody's watching. We all know that. Speaking up when staying quiet would be easier. And the last one, being consistent between what we think, say, and do. And I have to be honest, sometimes I do feel like a fraud. I'm talking about integrity. I had this amazing career. I made a lot of money. I got promoted many times, And when I think about it, it was my lack of consistency. Sure, I was a good Catholic guy at home. I would go into the office. I worked at Google, and we'll talk about Google in a second. But I used to joke with some of my Catholic conservative buddies. We said we're in the closet. We had to stay in the closet there. We couldn't let anyone know we are Christian, certainly not a conservative. And I thought about that my career, because of my lack of integrity, took off. It was only when I stood up and was manned up and said, this can't go on, actually ended up getting me fired. And so I think about this, how my dad started, and my mom at an early age, talking about integrity and the importance of that. They actually added one other layer, which I've thought a lot about over the last 20 years to think. And at the time, I was a kid, I didn't understand. But they talked about actually our family motto. And even on our family, my father's gravestone. Any Latin scholars here, fellas? Any? Yeah? Veritatem facere caritate. Anyone know what that means? It's living the truth in love. We can talk about integrity all day long and being a good guy. But you ever go to Mass, and sometimes there's a woman, she's praying a rosary in the front row, and she has her veil, and she's so angry. And I think, man, if you just, remember, without love, we are lost. When you combine that all together, and you put that all together, all sorts of beautiful things happen. So I mentioned all that. So I started as a kid. I had a good foundation. My parents taught me good faith, work really hard. And so I went to college, had to pay my way through college. My family, while we had a lot of kids, my dad got sick, and so we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we all worked. Ever since I was a little kid, we worked hard, was able to go to college, started a job, and I say this, especially, I'm talking to all the young guys here. When you come out, the world is a hard place today. And I realized, I'm not the smartest guy. I didn't go to fancy schools. But the one thing I had is I worked really hard. When everyone else was coming in at 9 o'clock, I came in every single day at 6:15. Always made sure, no matter what, I was in at 6:15. So I started doing well in my career, rising up just because I worked harder than the next guy. I actually took a little break, and I felt like God was calling me. And hopefully you have a few vocations here, and you're probably thinking, oh, wait, being a priest? I don't know. Even though you see guys like Father Myers, and you say, yeah, hell yeah, I want to be like that guy. And so for 2 years, I actually went into the seminary. And that's where I met Father in Rome, but it just wasn't for me. I joke and say I'm a seminary dropout. But I leave the seminary. A year and a half, I actually got married. A year after that, I had a baby. A year and a half after that, another baby. And 15 months later, I had a third baby. I'm 31 years old. I'm fighting, I'm just doing the grind like we all do the grind every day, trying to make ends meet. And I'm in New York City. I'm going to an elevator, going to this conference, and there's a guy in there. When it's in New York, when you visit New York, they say New Yorkers aren't particularly pleasant. That's actually not, it's half true. But I'm in the elevator. I get in the elevator with this guy. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? I'm just talking to the guy. The guy's talking back. So we have a conversation, literally going up to the 14th floor. It's and then we get off the elevator and he keeps talking to me. He's talking, and I would think back about this because I'm I was just happened to be in a good mood that day. I was striking up conversation, trying to be a nice guy. This guy's talking back, and then he wouldn't stop talking to me. And I thought, and Father, I'm sorry for saying this, but I'm oh man, this guy's gay. I thought this weird dude was why? I'm why does he keep talking to me? Turns out he says, hey, listen, the reason I'm talking to you, I'm a big shot at Google. And have you ever thought about working there? And at the time, this was 2006, was the hottest company. They would get 4 million or some insane amount of resumes a year. It was impossible to get a job there. I meet this guy in the elevator. I'm well, actually, in fact, I have. And 3 months later, I get a job, and I start at Google. And that started, and at Google, so I was there for almost 16 years. when I started as just a junior guy, and one thing, anyone know the term imposter syndrome? So, and I say this, especially for the guys who are earlier on in their career, I had massive imposter syndrome. Coming in, I didn't go to Harvard and Princeton, all these fancy schools everyone went to. I grew up poor. Most of the people I was working with grew up rich. They all had better backgrounds, and I thought they're smarter than me, they're better than me. But I realized there's a whole bunch of things I don't do very well. The one thing I had going for me is I worked really hard, and I was actually pretty decent at sales. And it turned out, I realized, I'm working with all these fancy people, that I started selling more. And I had to, and I'll talk about this later, about playing to your strengths. Those are my strengths, and actually, so I started rising through the ranks at Google. And so through that time, over the next 15 years, I kept getting promoted and going higher and higher and higher up. And this is, and all my counterparts were all Harvard MBAs, super fancy guys. And then there was this schmuck from the wrong side of the tracks who just was pretty good at selling. And so I started managing big teams. During this time, I started having lots of kids too. So you can imagine at Google in New York City, our offices are in Silicon Valley. Having more than 2 kids, you're a weirdo. Having 7 kids, I'm just literally everyone at Google knew I'm the weirdo with 7 kids. But I try to be a nice guy. So Ryan's weird. He has 7 kids. Pretty sure he's he's one of those weird Christian guys. But he's a nice guy. So we'll give him a pass. Actually, our kids, we even have a little band. So the guys are a little older now, but so I'm going to talk later about, we started a band because the kids one day went to a friend's house, and I said, hey, what'd you do? They're gone for 3 hours. And they said, oh, I was playing video games. I'm like, what else you do? Oh, we played video games. I'm like, you played video games for 3 hours. Are you kidding me? I'm like, imagine if you spend 3 hours reading a book or learning a language or learning an instrument. I'm like, no more. And so we cut that out, and we said, we're going to start, we started playing music. My brothers and sisters, I have 8 brothers and sisters, so I have 65 nieces and nephews. So you know what? When Tim was talking about, I think about Saint Monica and his mom, I would ask my mom, all of our kids, everyone kept the faith. All my brothers, we all have 7, I'm like a slacker with only 7 kids. And they all kept their faith. And my mom, I said, well, I don't understand, because I have a million friends who their family has lost their way. And she brought it back, and I said, how was that? She said, the rosary, lean on Mary. And then during this time, so Google's going great, the family's going great, my nieces and nephews, everything is great. We started a store, seven scoops for my 7 kids, 7 scoops and sips. Where we started it, I wanted a store because I grew up poor. I made it because I just worked harder. I was scared to death that my kids who are no longer poor would not have that hunger. So I wanted them to work, and there's nothing I love more than some 400-pound guy comes out of the bathroom, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I clogged your toilet. I'm like, no, it's good. I'm like, William. and I mean, it's so beautiful seeing. He's like, oh, and I'm like, life lesson, my man, go do it. But at 10:30 at night, I'm not too big for it. I'm out there mopping the floors. So I'm like, what, you think your dad's too cool to mop floors? Mop floors. Real men mop floors. And so we started, it was for my kids. We hire 1 million people. We started hiring people with Down syndrome. And that grew into other people would come in, they'd see someone with Down syndrome, like, hey, my kid has a disability. I'm like, hired. And so we started hiring more, and now we have, the place is amazing. So I say all this because, I was going through, and by the way, Google, because I was doing really well, Google supports everything we're doing at 7 Scoops. It was because they were giving me a lot of stock, and so I could do that. And so I justified being a wuss at Google, because I'm like, but it's doing other good. And So everything was great. Like business was great, family was great. And then, imagine this. Imagine going to your office and I walk in one day and this is my, like change the Google sign. So this was a start. It was probably 2015 or so, the world started going crazy. And where you see the world, and now we're in like God's country out here, in like middle America. When you go, anyone here from the coast, you hang out in New York City, it is much different. Like you go in on Ash Wednesday, you want to look, I've like talk about going into battle. I'm like walking down the street with my ashes and people are like, ugh, ugh, ugh. So you're like in the lion's den. And so this starts. And it used to just be like, hey, okay, so we're going to put signs up there. Then it started getting more aggressive. Hey, we're having a parade here. And, I'll just keep quiet. It's just like keep to myself. And then they would come in, hey, Ryan, we want the executives to be at this parade. I think it would be awesome for your family to go to this parade. Can you come join us? And I'm like, And again, I'm such a wuss. I knew like I was like being a politician here. Not like, you know what? Yeah, so you guys all know the drill. And then it just kept escalating. So I think, and as we all know, COVID hits, the world goes nuts. George Floyd hits, it goes nuts. Well, I'm having training sessions, I swear, every other day about my white male privilege. And I'm like, just for the record, I didn't have much privilege. I had to do it like the hard way. And I know we all have like struggles, but vaccine, they say if you do not get the shot, you are fired. So this is, you would go into every men's bathroom in the country has tampons. So, and many of you are probably like, that's like, it can't possibly be true. This is how insane our world was becoming. Roe v. Wade when the Roe v. Wade note hits, I get a note, Ryan, your team is suffering. You have to address this and tell them why this is so awful. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And this started to be the beginning of the end. And, and just one more example. So if you see, we all use AI today. This is when AI, and you remember you saw this all over the news. Imagine how wacky the employees have to be when they're programming and they said, okay, if someone searches for an American football player, I'm going to show these women, or colonial people, I'm going to show a whole bunch of people that probably weren't like founding America, and then of course our founding fathers. So and the best thing is you did a search for a pope, and this is what shows up. Okay, we can't have a man. We certainly can't have someone. We need someone of color, a person of color, and so I was surrounded by this. This is like just like how life was, and I just adapted and had to work through that. And it all changes when like you remind yourself on integrity and on these like speaking up, being consistent. And you know what finally did it for me? And this might sound weird to you all, but it was this. It was one day when they came in, they said, Ryan, we've asked you 3 times. Every executive has their pronouns and their bio on their email. And I said, listen, I don't want to make a big deal of this. I love and respect everyone. This isn't a political thing. I just don't think it's right for you to be like telling me like how I should write my emails and put my name on LinkedIn. And like, I'm not, like, respectfully, I'm not going to do it. I went home that night and I said, Ann, listen, they are on to me. They used to be, they used to give me a break because at 7 Scoops, they know we do all this cool stuff. Like we have 100 people, kids, every year sleep in our parking lot to raise money for the homeless youth in Covenant House. Like we do all this stuff where like libs are like, oh, that's awesome. But then they're like, they knew that was, and so I said, Ann, I give myself 6 months. 2 months later, I get a call in one day. I go into a room and I'm like, uh-oh, because there's a lot of people in there, and happened to see their security guards sitting out front, and they said, I'm like, oh, this probably is not going to go well. And And they said, you're fired for not being inclusive. And they said all sorts of things like I favored high performers, which I would think any corporation should do. And they said, you admitted that you don't like to hire slow walkers, and that's discriminatory. I'm like, listen, I'm in a bit like, slow walkers usually aren't go-getters. Fast walkers walk faster, and and it wasn't actually so much so I get fired. It was actually, when I thought about it, the next step was where, when my life crashed, my identity was I was the dad with 7 kids, and I'm like I'm the guy at Google. Everyone who knew me, hey, that's the Google guy. And all that ended. And so it was tough. But the tough part came next, when going back to integrity, when you say, like, speaking up, when it's just easier to be quiet. And I thought, this is clearly a wrong. And it's not just me. There's millions of people out there that have been wronged by these crazy HR corporate cultures. And almost all of them cannot fight back. The companies are just too big. It costs too much money. And I'm like, I feel like I got to do it. But by doing that, I'm going to fight back. This is David and Goliath, and I'm going after them, and they're going to smear me, and they're going to say I'm a bad dude, and it's like there's a potential this could go viral. Well, turns out it goes very viral. Hundreds of millions of articles all over the world. Everyone jumped on this story because everyone was sick of it. They see like these corporate cultures who have gone insane, and they just have had enough. And so one article comes out. Actually, it started, and I'll never forget, I was at the store, and my buddy calls me and says, hey, have you read the news? And it was the New York Post. And they came out with an article. The second that hit, they exploded. I have news crews outside my house. They're calling my kids in college. And it just kept going. And so there's just articles in CNN, Fox, Fortune, all of them. It's funny though, they're all talking about this Christian married father of 7. So I'm like getting painted as this and even a good follow for you. So my niece, Mary Margaret Olohan, I don't know if anyone tracks her, but she's the White House correspondent for the Daily Wire, and her post, she tweets, hey, my uncle got fired, and has over 1.5 million views. And so people really picked up on this. And I say, I go through all this, and it was a really hard time. And I'm going to talk about this because during that time where I'm fighting and having to deal with lawyers and in the news, and it was a lot going on. It's funny, I spent my whole life talking to my kids about just trusting God. Trust that everything will work out. And you have nothing to worry about. And so I came up with, just a few ideas. And we've been talking about all of us, we are in a battle, whether it be at work and in our culture. And so I am well aware, I'm like a seminary dropout. I'm like a nobody. I have no business being up here. But I just thought, as an ordinary guy, just some of the things that I've thought through, when dealing with adversity and thinking about integrity, are there a few key things that have helped me. And maybe this is helpful, maybe it's not, but I would start with, when we think about arming ourselves for battle, I talk about, we talk about trusting in God, and we say, yeah, that's easy. And my kids, every time they're upset and they're worried, and they got a bad grade on a test, I'm like, why do you worry? If you trust in God, everything works out. And so I, just work hard, you do your best, and everything works out exactly as it is. Until I'm worried sick, I'm gonna throw up going through this whole thing. And I'm like, I trust in God as long as it's things are pretty cool. But the second it gets hard, I realize I wilted like a little flower. And And so one thing changed everything in my life. If there's one thing you take away from this, I realized I say I trust in God, but I didn't. And the one thing that changed everything for me is someone said, hey, have you ever tried the surrender novena? Anyone here ever use the surrender novena? So, very simple. And someone said, try this novena, super short, super easy. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. You do a little prayer and you would say this 10 times. And I started thinking about it. Like, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. Before I got on stage, like, I'm like, this is like super intimidating. I'm like, Jesus, like, I surrender myself to you. I know I'm a big dope, but just like, take care of this. And instantly, I'm like, anxiety gone. And so, if you have not tried this, honestly, in fact, if you don't mind, I know I thought, Tim, when you were saying some prayers up there, that was powerful. Can we try this? I want to do it 3 times together. And really lean into this. I swear it will change your life if you do this every single day. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. You know how much easier life is when you just accept, good or bad. You just accept. In everything will work out. You know, one other thing is, and this seems, I remember walking down the street one day, I just had to get away. I was at my wit's end. I'm listening to, I'm like a Christian rock guy now, listening to the music. And this song hits this was before I had the Surrender Novena, but it was this song. I don't know if you've ever heard this. Actually, I don't know if it'll even work.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know.
When brokenness and pain is all I know. I will not be shaken.
I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
My fear doesn't stand a chance. I stand in your love. And I remember listening, and I listen to music, I'm not fully listening. I started leaning in. And that song, honestly, it's funny how certain things get thrown in your way. That song and the Surrender Novena did more for me in a really challenging time than, and plus I'll talk through and rosary and all that good stuff. So once you surrender and we get disciplined, so you've already heard enough of this from Father, from Tim, and you'll hear more, but the spiritual discipline. And we all know this, but I know everything changed for me when I started making an effort to do the rosary every day. I've tried to go to Mass as often as I could with work, doing the Bible, confession. We all know this. And by the way, I'm throwing out Hallow. I don't know if we have hands here. It made me incredibly disciplined. I would try to do the rosary every day in my car, but I see a squirrel and I get distracted and I forget. And the Hallow keeps me on track. I swear it is made me so much better, more disciplined. So, and one other thing I'll say on this, I'm going to run out of time, but I do want to say, I remember with all my kids, some days I was just so tired. I would get home and I was like, should I just let them go to bed? Should we say night prayers? Have you all seen the stats about men and their families and the leaders of their families? If mom and dad go to church, there's there's all sorts of studies between a 55 and 75% chance your kids will continue the faith if mom and dad go. If mom goes and dad does not go, it's between 8 and 15%. No matter how faithful mom is, they all follow the dad. They all follow the man. And so some days I'm tired and I think, you know what, be a man. Like, they will follow you. So spiritual discipline, we all need it. But I would also say, no matter how many rosaries you have, you say, no matter how holy you are, if you don't have self-discipline, and fellas, the next few, I'm like talking to you guys on this, super important here. I would say, I realized something like making it through, and this isn't just like fighting Google, it was actually my career. It was like something my dad taught us, always talked about, like winning the first battle of the day. Don't ever for the rest of your life hit snooze, ever again. Like a discipline, you have to be disciplined in this world. We are going into battle. Do not hit snooze. You get out of bed. My routine, you get out of bed. You get on your knees. You say, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. I would get down, I started doing, I'm like, maybe I could do 20 push-ups. I can now, and this isn't a brag, I guess it is a brag, I can do 100 straight push-ups. And it started by, and then I make my bed. Make your bed. And all these things, like we have to like be soldiers. This is a tough world out there. And when you see these men, you know, you're the future leaders of your families in corporate. When you like figure this stuff out, when you embrace fasting, social media, get rid of it. Video games, it's a waste. And I'm sorry, there is no redeemable qualities. Instead of spending that time there is so much better things you can do. Exodus 90, if anyone's ever tried that, it's awesome. And I think like getting rid of alcohol and other things that are all weighing us down. So we win the battle, you know, and fellas, if you can look in the mirror, before you go to bed every night, look at yourself in the mirror and honestly ask yourself, did you do your best today? If you can say like, today I did my best, tomorrow I'll do better. Imagine where you'll be in a year, in 2 years, in 50 years. Find your strengths. I said this goes back to Google when I started. And I just thought I lacked confidence and I thought everyone was better than me. How often do we think people are better than us? They're smarter than us. They're richer than us. They're faster than us. And until I realized, listen, we all have our weaknesses. I have many. But we also have our strengths. When you find your strengths, like, remember, God believes in you. Do you believe in you? And I work with a lot of young people, and it's remarkable. I see how talented and awesome they are. But I can see it in their eyes. They don't. Because they're so worried about their weaknesses, and they're focused on their weaknesses. I'm like, focus on your strengths. I had 2 strengths in the whole world. That's all I'm good at. But that actually like really helped me in my career. So find your strengths. And then last point on this is when you know your strengths, when you work hard, when you trust in God, take the penalty kick. A few years ago, my son, I've 5 sons, they're all soccer players. It was like a state semifinal game, and it came down to penalty kicks, and I was surprised. He's like a good player. He didn't take the penalty kick. And after, I was like, hey, Will, how come you didn't? I thought you were in like the top 5. You're going to take it. He's like, oh, I was supposed to. I was so nervous. I'm like, Dad, I told like coach, like have someone else do it. And I let it go, but I couldn't, it like bothered me. For 2 days, I was dwelling. I was like, why is this bothering me so much? And I realized that penalty kick is symbolic of life. Life is hard. There's so many times that penalty kick, he misses the penalty kick, he loses the game. But leaders step up. Leaders see that penalty kick and they say, choose me. I'll take it. And yes, they might lose the game, but a leader will take that on and they could win that game. So there's all these penalty kicks in your life, literally every single day. Every day. It might be, there's a cute girl you've always wanted to talk to. You don't take that shot. There's a job you want to apply for. Just try to think. All those times you're like, I don't know. Take the penalty kick. I'll end with, through all of this, anyone here, and I know we have a lot of people who've do some great things with adoration at their churches. All I know is I've on and off would do adoration here or there. They would say, hey, we're going to have adoration. Can you join? I'm like, sure, I'll do that. I have an older brother. He has 8 kids. He's a good guy, really good guy, but he's kind of a jerk. He's always like, actually, are we being filmed? Is this going to be, bro, I love you, man, but you used to be a jerk. And I realized something. It was like a year ago. I thought, wait, he's not a jerk. He's actually legit. I can see this is like a really good man. And I said, hey, don't take. And something happened. Like, you're like a good guy. Why is that? And he said, not to like pat myself on the back here, I started doing adoration. I go at 3 a.m. I started doing it on Tuesday night, and I loved it so much. I go on Friday night, and the guy came hardcore about doing adoration. And all he know, and I was like, if it worked for him. So at our church, we'd step up, we have a men's group. I'm like, men, be men. Let's like get into adoration. And we'd like have fights. And I like chide him. I'm like, hey, I'm taking the 3 o'clock hour because I'm tougher than you guys. Like the 12 o'clock, that's weak. And, but what I'll say is I started doing adoration through all this. And when I go to adoration, so I will do the rosary, and then I do nothing. Nothing. I just simply like sit. And I just in that quiet, and I let just listen. And it has been life-changing. And so if you can throw that in, and just find, if you can't do an hour, try a half hour. If you're bold and your church has nocturnal, if they're doing it at night, if you do a 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock hour, I promise you it will change your life. And the last point I'll make is no matter what, we're gonna fall down. There's days we all go to Mass, well, maybe not you, but me. Sometimes I go to Mass and I leave and I'm like, shoot, I didn't hear one word Father said. I was so distracted about the work, I got nothing. Or I'm like trying to pray and I want to go like, it's like you ever want to go out for a jog and I'm not feeling it. And it's really easy to just stop, persevere. On those bad days, you don't want to do it, do it. Like get up in the morning, you don't want to do your push-ups, do it. And you push through. Mendoza, the guy is a legend because he pushed through. And that no matter what he does, whether it be football or in life, that guy will be a winner. He will always win because he pushes through. So remember that, the tough times, when you fall into sin, when you fall down, push through. Like, get on your horse again. Go to confession. Get back up. Like, don't beat yourself up over it. And so, just to end, I would say I ended on a good note, because after a big battle with lots of lawyers, they came, So we won. I wanted it to go the distance, but at some point after 2 years of my life, and I said when they, give you an offer you can't refuse, sometimes and all I wanted was that, to say, Google, you lost. And for me, that was the win for all us Catholic guys fighting. And I would end with this. We all know this saying, right? When one door closes, another door opens. So we've all heard that. A lot of people don't realize there's a second half of it. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones that open for us. And I thought about that, how, with Google, I was starting to look back at that door, and now I look at it and I say, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me Google. Thank you for helping me fail out of the seminary. Thank you for getting me fired from Google. And all this, I surrender myself, take care of everything. And if we can all just embrace that, honestly, I think it's impossible to lose. Thank you all.
So I believe that we are a collection of relationships and people that pour their lives into each other, into another person. When Ryan came to the seminary at the North American College in Rome, I will just tell you that he didn't fit in. but he inspired me. I can't tell you the amount of times in these past 22 years as a priest that my mind and my thoughts have gone back to this radical young man who showed up at the seminary and that stirred things up and refused to be normal in very possibly a toxic culture. Gentlemen, every single one of you will influence other people. Every single one of you, in the way you act, the way you speak, the way you dress, the way you pray, you have an impact on other people. I can say that part of me being the priest that I am today is because of this man right here, a seminary dropout. And I couldn't be more proud. Never forget the power of your influence in the lives of your brothers, your sons, your classmates, your teammates. It matters. You matter. Amen?